The Tales of Davy Jones series was based on the fact that the Jones family, back from before the time of Christ, were seamen who, like all great seamen, kept very careful records of all the things they did, where they went, and all the experiences that they had. And these experiences, along with all of the artifacts that the family had collected since before the time of Christ, were handed down from father to son. And so what you have is you have not only all these incredible artifacts, but probably, for our purposes, more important and really more interesting, the story of all of these seamen, captains and sailors and pirates, all from before the time of Christ all the way to the present. At the bottom of the locker, there are literally hundreds of books, and each one contains dozens and dozens of stories. So there are literally hundreds of stories in the series. Because in Quetzalcoatl, you have probably 24 stories just on Quetzalcoatl. Then you have the story of Sir Christian Thomas Richard, and there's literally dozens and dozens of stories to be told. Quetzalcoatl is a feathered serpent. In Teotihuacan, Mexico, along the Avenue of the Dead, there are 3 temples. There's the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the Moon, and the third temple. And the symbol that covers the exterior of the third temple is the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. And a lot of people have probably seen it. It's a picture of a feathered serpent. It's kind of squarish looking when the Mayans designed it, and if you've seen the picture. But it basically is a feathered serpent. And in the story, the first story, Quetzalcoatl, Garrett discovers the feathered serpent, and they become friends, and the story is about all the things that they go through together. One of the things that, for me, the deeper meanings that are in the story, one of the people that read it, and actually his children, said, if you like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you'll love Quetzalcoatl. I wrote the story with the idea that children, even when you watch movies, seldom do you get it all the first time. After you watch it a number of times, you start to see things you didn't see the first time. And to me, that's what makes a great story great, is that you see deeper meanings as you go through it each time. There's all kinds of artifacts. Some of them, there's a Samaritan clay tablet that's 2,000 years old. And if you look at the markings on the gray clay tablet, it is, I mean, it just looks like a bunch of V's, but you have no idea what it says. And why would you, the interesting thing to me is why would you keep that Samaritan clay tablet? What significance does it have to the Jones family? And so you have to sit there and research through all the stories and go, who had the clay tablet? Why did he have it? And what value is it? Why is it for 2,000 years? Why do they still have it? And then you have things like knives, and there's several dozen knives, and there's guns. And what are the significance? Why did you keep this gun? Is it a family heirloom? Was it given to you by a pirate, or what was the purpose of it? There are all kinds of things. There's stuff from the American Revolution. There are things from Roman times, some coins, jewelry, things that I don't think archaeologists or anyone's ever seen before, let alone know what they are. I believe the themes throughout the series, and especially in Quetzalcoatl, are universal. All children go through these experiences. I mean, try and find a child who doesn't feel alone at some time, or who feels picked on, or feel like they don't fit. I mean, every kid goes through that experience, and to have somebody kind of go through it for you, you watch how Garrett deals with the situations, and Rhonda and all the other kids. I had one person who posted on Facebook, and she was a mother with 8 children living in Korea. She's in the her husband's in the Air Force, and she talked about how her children used the things that they gained. Think about being kids, American kids in Korea, and not fitting. And a lot of the things she said that they learned at Quetzalcoatl, they were able to apply to fit in Korea. I think the age group that my story appeals to are pretty much kids from the ages of about 5 all the way to 14 and 15, depending on the kid. Because what happens is I've had lots and lots and lots of feedback from children that are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old that I would have considered perhaps a little bit too young, who are listening to the story dozens of times. And I mean literally dozens of times. The Tales of Davy Jones series is not necessarily a chronological series. Mr. Jones shares the stories as he kind of thinks they fit Christian's life or somebody else's. The series could move all over the place. I did an abridged version of Garrett and the Feathered Serpent as an audiobook because I was afraid that, especially a lot of my own son, for example, didn't really like to read that much. And I was hoping to really get to their imagination using audio. That's why I did music, sound effects, and a full cast of characters. And with fully orchestrated original music, one of the things I learned from creating it was the fact that music tells you what to think and how to feel. It sets up what's coming next. And so when children, anybody who listens to that story, you are basically taking them into my world and saying, I want you to have this experience. And so in my opinion, it is incredibly fun, especially if you can get someone to put headphones on, because then they really step into my world and they are with Garrett and with Quetzalcoatl and having this experience as opposed to just kind of reading about it or listening to it. The MP4 version basically just allows you to read along with the story. So let's suppose you have a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old who's just barely getting the words. Well, he's listening to the story and he's reading the words as they come through. Some he'll recognize, some he won't. But as he gradually listens to it over and over again, he starts to improve his vocabulary, and then also he's able to understand the context that the words are used and how things are done. And I think there's just a ton of things that the kids will gain from, but more important is their imagination. Is getting them to the point where they hear the story and then they get excited because they can start to put words with ideas and visions in their mind. They can see it and get excited about it. And so one of the things that's most important to get a child to read is to have them imagine exactly what it is. I'm not really sure what's next with the Tales of Davy Jones series, simply because I have the story of Sir Christian Thomas Richard. The House of Richard is all done. But I kind of want to stay with Quetzalcoatl for a little while. There are several dozen Quetzalcoatl episodes, and I'm not necessarily going to stay in chronological order to go with how they all happen together, because some of them actually are separated by hundreds of years. But I really, the House of Richard is done. I could easily do that, and I may, depending on how long it takes to get Q2 done. But the series isn't necessarily in chronological order.